I'd like to call the Romulus Board of Education meeting for Monday, October 23rd, 2006 to order. And could I have roll call from the secretary, please?
Mrs. Strayer.
Present.
Mrs. Buckley.
Here.
Mr. Truitt.
Present.
Ms. Lanasi.
Present.
Ms. Roscoe is absent but excused. Mr. McCanich.
Present.
And Mrs. White.
Would we all stand for Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If there are no changes to the agenda, we need a motion for approval.
I motion that we approve the agenda.
Support.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Now we go to approval of minutes of the previous meeting.
I'll make the motion.
Support.
Do we have any questions concerning the minutes from the previous meeting? Seeing no questions, we'd like to have a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We now go to report of the superintendent. Mr. Weiss?
Okay. First on our agenda here, we have our auditors to give us a kind of a rendition of our 2005-2006 school year. So I'm going to turn the floor over to them. They have a PowerPoint presentation for us and an explanation, and board members have a packet to refer to as they're viewing the slides.
Okay, I'll make sure I hold this close.
Oh, my God.
We appreciate the opportunity to appear tonight and give you a recap of the financial statements for the year ended June 30, 06. We thought we would change our presentation this year and do a slide presentation. Initially, we'll have, what we want to do is zero in on the general fund revenue and expenses, since the district really lives and breathes by the results of that activity. And we'll start with some financial numbers, and then the rest of the presentation takes these and slices and dices these numbers into various charts and graphs to give a visual recap of what they all mean. And we hit the lights. Okay.
Thank you.
And we provided a manual just in case these are difficult to read. A manual recap of what to follow. If you would focus on the actual column on that page, and you can see there was an original budget, an amended budget, and then how things actually turned out after the numbers were audited. And I'll wait just a few seconds. In broad terms, revenue was just shy of $43 million, and expenditures were 43 million. Whoops, can we bring that up? Yes. You can see it that at this level, the district operated almost at a break-even point, but then after the school athletics and community services, which expended about $650,000, the negative impact to fund balance was just about $700,000. The beginning fund balance, being $758,000, leaves a positive number. It didn't go negative. And you can see that the original budget anticipated about $200,000 left. Then the amended budget brought that down to about 11, and the actual results were a tad better. The good news is that that negative 704, even though it is a negative, compared to the prior year of $1,956,000, it was significantly better than the prior year. If you go back up, revenue of $42,950,000 was about $2,200,000 higher than the prior year. So that helped significantly. And then expenditures only went up $400,000, which is about a 1% number at that point. if you dissected the prior year, there were several large non-recurring items in the prior year. About 700,000 were payments on early retirements, and another 300,000 is buried in the prior year numbers for sick pay and vacation accumulated dollars for people who retired. That didn't occur. So if you backed $1 million out of there and then added the 400,000 increase, it's about $1.4 million, which is about an inflationary 3% increase for the current year. The real work that's being done in the due diligence is really in the 06-07 budget to take those expenditures and actually work them down and get to a break even at this point. That's the goal, break even or better for the current year that you're currently in. The let's see. The general category, you can for revenues, we have local sources, which are tax dollars, state sources, which is the money that comes out of Lansing, federal, and then other incoming transfers. You can see some significant pluses and minuses when you compare actual to budget. The district experienced some significant adjustments in the property tax base connected with mainly with some property over on in the county airport, and there's an interaction between the state funding and those tax dollars. So therefore, the dollars get adjusted and come out in state dollars when you take a hit on those local dollars. But when they came in, the budget was very close. It was within about $200,000, and you can see the expenditures were within 140. So that final budget had some good work done on it, and it was pretty close at that point. So taking these dollars, we can snap forward to a chart, and this basically takes that column of numbers for revenue, and it shows you that your state dollars are about 55% of your revenue source, and 36% were local. And if there are adjustments here, it flips and back and forth. But those were the percentages for the current year. Federal is 9%, $3.6 million, and then there's some small other activity through RESA and incoming transfers. It's so small that the percentage is 0, which doesn't make sense, but we didn't take it to the decimal points. So that's a pie chart as far as where those general fund revenues come in from. And then as far as dollars going out, chart 3 will show you by function the fact that, and this was an interesting chart, because when you take all of your expenditures and you break it into the instruction category based on the state chart of accounts, you're looking at basically just shy of 50% of every dollar is for instruction. What's interesting is the support service area almost is equal to that. And then this is a tough one to read, but it's 1.7% is all of the other category, which are the outgoing transfers, et cetera. But that's an interesting percentage. In fact, we read an article the other day, I think in Florida, they actually have a referendum trying to get the school districts in Florida to spend 65% of every dollar on instruction. So there's, across the nation, there seems to be a push in that area. Then to slice expenditures a different way, we prepared a chart on number 4 that takes those expenditures, and it shows that salaries are 59% of every dollar spent. Benefits are 27%. Add those together, you're looking at 86% of every dollar. 86 cents out of every dollar you spend is salary and benefits. Pretty significant chunk, and that's common for all school districts. And then purchase services are 5%. Your supplies and other areas are 9%. Capital outlay was very small, and some small transfers to other. But it shows you the enormity of the salary and benefits within the budget. It comes down to people. And then number 5, we looked at your enrollment numbers. Pretty consistent, 4,308. It bumped up to 4,315 and then down to 4,300. So they've been pretty consistent. And when you take your actual for 0405, you spent 9805, 0506, 9950, and then that's budgeted for 9745 in the 0607 year. And we have a chart later that equates this to revenue. The number 6 is exactly that. This is a little longer history on the amount of revenue per student versus expenditures per student. And this number is a little different. The number on the prior chart doesn't include capital outlay and the transfers. This one is all expenditures. And you can see budgeted for 06 or 07, you have a nice round number of $10,000 per student with a revenue of $9,998. Well, the projected budget for 06-07 at $2 a student for 4,300 students is about $8,000 to $9,000. So you can see the confluence of the two charts with revenue and expenditures, and they're meeting, and that's the goal right there. And you can see the shortfall was a lot less than the last 2 years, last several years. Okay, chart 7 will take a look at benefits. This is the 27% of the entire budget. What we did is we broke it down by retirement, FICA, which is Social Security and Medicare contribution, health insurance, workers' comp, and then a little bit of Michigan unemployment. And what's interesting is the pension number is growing. And if you look at the components of the pension funding, what's driving that is what's driving these numbers up here. You can see healthcare for current employees is $4,199,000, $5,008,000, sliding back to $5,004,000. The school district is really is experiencing the same pressures as corporate America and everybody else in this country, and that is escalating healthcare costs. And it's really a double-edged sword, because this is the cost for current employees, but what's driving the increase in the pension costs are the embedded health care for the retirees. So it's retiree health care is driving this number, and then the current employees are here. FICA and Medicare are pretty straightforward, flat 7.65%. Workman's comp is pretty consistent, and you can see with the cutbacks we're anticipating in 06-07 some state unemployment costs. But look at that percentage, 04-05, 38 cents out of every dollar paid is benefit, going to 46% to 48%. It's up 10% just in 2 years as a percentage of compensation. So, and then number 8, I'm sorry, is this is your fund balance, and on that first chart you'll see that number, 758 is the beginning number, with the $704,000 loss, reduction in fund balance. You're currently sitting at $53,000, and the budget for 06-07 is projected to drop that about $9,000, that $2 per student. Okay, and number 9, these really give you another view of the components of revenue, and it shows how effective your budgeting has been. Actually, they're pretty close with the local dollars, actual budget for 05-06, and then the state dollars shows you. It's another view of the components of your revenue stream, with the federal up here, and then of course those real little top ones being RESA and other. But, and then I think number 10 is the same view on expenditures. And there again, it shows the instruction with that layer virtually as thick for sports service, and then all the other stuff is just layered on top. 40506 with not many variations between budget and actual. And I believe that's the last one. So it's a way of trying to take the massive amount of numbers and key in on a few issues and try to give you a feel for the source and application of funds, if you will. So, and I brought Lois Smythe along with me, as I always do, to fill in any details of the generalizations that I make, if you have any questions. And then since I'm one of those guys who can't program my VCR, well, I brought my partner Kathy Billings to run the equipment to make sure that I didn't fumble around. So, hopefully we can answer any questions that you may have on the numbers. The audit opinion is clean opinion. Everything is generally accepted as far as policies and procedures in the accounting area. No issues in the federal area. So it was very clean in the federal area. So it was pretty solid result as far as the numbers holding their own.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
One way of increasing the revenue, obviously, is to increase student population.
Mm-hmm.
Now, even if we do that, if the state continues to increase the percentage that we have to pay for retirement, it's pretty well wiping us out, isn't it? I mean, when they raised that percentage, this year went to 17-something.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure the state's going to continue, so...
You're just fighting a battle against that, you know, and when it's such a large part of the budget overall, because it's people driven, it's pretty tough when you start trying to cut those other 5 and 9% areas with supplies and purchase services, et cetera, utilities or whatever. There are efficiencies that you can gain, but it's such a small slice of the pie compared to what's handed to you and say fund it. And it is the state, the funding for that state teacher pension is a load, and there's no way around it. It's mandated. Yes, sir.
So am I correct in assuming, Ron, that if we look at the total compensation of an average employee, of course an average employee doesn't exist, but yeah, based on your chart, if we look at the total compensation of an average employee, that half of their total compensation does not go into their paycheck. It's money that goes out for benefits, for health insurance, FICA, and retirement, that they never actually take that money home, half their total compensation?
That's very true. That 48% is a relationship percentage for a dollar of compensation. So a dollar of compensation that goes in the paycheck, 48 cents goes into the coffers for all of the benefits. Yes. Yep. And that's up 10% just in 2 years. So like pushing a barge to try to compensate for that.
I just had a comment. These charts were very visual and very good. It just makes it painfully clear where we are. So I appreciate the effort to do this.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
It was very good. So when you see it like that, it kind of better than numbers on a piece of paper. It kind of just jumps out at you. So yeah, painfully clear.
Sometimes it's interesting.
So in looking at this total thing, you know, our population has stayed pretty stable. I know we have a lot of students who live here but don't go to school here. Our only option really is then to make cuts. I mean, it's the only way we're going to be able to increase any revenue when we have major projects that need to be finished, like roofs or something like that. It looks like our only option is to make cuts elsewhere.
That's basically it. It's a painful truth that you hit you hit that threshold And the only way is to retrench, and with 86% of the budget being compensation and fringes, it points in one direction, and that's cuts.
Thank you.
Yes.
Anyone else?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very informative.
We're going to need a motion, right? All right, at this point, a motion would be in order for us to accept the audit report.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the audit report as presented.
Support.
Motion by Ms. White, supported by Mr. Kuderick, to accept the report. Do we have any questions? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, motion passed. All right, now we're going to item B, the elementary climate update. Mr. Dolan?
Thank you, Ken. Members of the board, tonight we have with us members of the District Climate Committee. The board is well aware of the importance of this committee. The charge to this committee is to design and implement a positive, predictable environment for all our students with a focus on achievement. Sue and Doug have been spearheading this committee, and we have at least 4 administrators here tonight, Dorothy and Diane and Mac and Sue and Sandy McDonald, social worker. So Susan?
Good evening, board members and central office staff. We're pleased to be here tonight to share with you some of the things that,
You got to grab the microphone.
Mike's.
some of the things.
Nope, not on yet.
Sounds like it.
Okay. Some of the things that the Climate Committee has been working on this year. And we appreciate the support we have from the principals who have come tonight, many of them who are on the Climate Committee, and of course Betty Lanazzi, who's one of our Climate Committee members also. So what we plan to present tonight is Doug's going to share with you some of the data collection from last year. I'd like to tell you a little bit about the elementary positive discipline program, because it has changed a bit this year, and Sandy's going to share with you how the safe and drug-free grant money is going to be expended a little bit differently also. So, Doug?
Good evening. In your packet, you have a chart like this. And basically what I've done is I've taken some of the information that was presented in the end of the year report that was put together by the Climate Committee, and compiled those pieces of information into 2 charts, one that's elementary referrals and one that's elementary suspensions, just to give you kind of a snapshot view. Basically, you can see that overall elementary referrals have dropped slightly in the 05-06 school year, which is a good sign. However, some of those which require suspension increased slightly, which is not a good sign. So suspension rates went up a little bit last year, but the overall referral rate of students went down. Some of the reasons for the elementary school referral rates to be such as they are, I went through each of the IR room supervisors, gave a little synopsis of their report at the end of the school year, which was compiled in the booklet and put together and distributed through the Climate Committee. But in looking at the IR room supervisors' reports, some of the things that they said that impacted their referral rates were things like an increase in the highest referred students happen to be new students to the building. Some of the things that helped them were progressive behavior plans that were instituted. That was a fairly consistent theme throughout most of the elementary schools. Reward programs that were initiated, such as fun days, school stores, no referral celebrations, citizenship parties, etc. The use of conflict resolution within the responsibility rooms, or the IR rooms in each of the elementary schools. The positive discipline program, the no bullying program, transitions programs for new students and for the younger students to help them acclimate themselves with the rules and the responsibility system. Also advertising monthly positive discipline activities, as well as team talk, which is weekly classroom meetings to discuss discipline issues, and then also development of school-wide themes such as the Paul Pride Begins With Me program at Romulus South. So those are just kind of some of the things that IR room supervisors reported that impacted the referral rates and suspension rates in their particular buildings.
Mr. Hoffman, could I ask something, please?
Sure.
And I don't care who answers it, you or Sue. I want to know why the suspension, this is kind of like a two-part question, why that has gone up, and is that suspension from the classroom or from the school, or what?
The data on suspensions is relative to the school overall, not just the classroom.
Okay.
So, and then the second part of your question is why the elevation?
Yeah, why has that increased?
I think it's hard to analyze that answer. It's relative to what's going on within each building. And the number of referrals that a given student has in that particular building, because in general there's a process of steps that go through whereby a first referral might just be a call home, or some discussion being sent to the IR room. Teacher would probably call the parents and let them know what's going on, but then subsequent referrals after that might then lead to suspensions. Also, there's quite a large effort to minimize suspensions. In many of the buildings, the actual rate of suspension dropped significantly. And I think the impact, personally, I think the impact of first and second year teachers does have some part to play there, because teachers are learning the system also. And a lot of times, staff coming into a building new as a first or second year teacher may not have all of the necessary tools in terms of classroom management in place for them, and their focus may be, what are the curricular issues that I have to deal with? What are the subjects that I have to teach? These are the things I need to focus on, and then maybe next year or the year after, once I have those things in place, I can continue to work on classroom management. Not to say that that's not important, because as we know, working within the committee, it's important to have all of those factors in place in order to have a successful classroom and successful student.
Doug, the data in the past has shown that, and this may or may not be true, but I think it might be true, that a high percentage of the same students result in the referrals and the suspensions. Do you have that data with you? Usually keep that data. You want to comment on that?
In general, it would be true to say that roughly about 25% of the referrals and therefore subsequent suspensions in a given building may be generated by the top 10 or 15 students within that building. And of course, behooves us to look at those situations and say, well, what is it that can be done to help amend that situation, which is one of the reasons for the behavior plans that a lot of buildings are using, because we find that they ultimately are very successful at bringing the parents into the issue of how they can help their son or daughter be successful in school.
Thanks.
Okay, and looking at that data, I think is a good segue into talking about how the elementary positive discipline program has changed this year. We've had the same program in effect for approximately 10 years. It's always been based on the district need, and it's also been a program that's based on research-based best practices. One thing we do know about behavior is that 80% of student behavior can be well managed in the classrooms. And I think all of our classrooms do have behavior management programs that are they're put together by the classroom teachers to deal with the students that have their particular needs. However, there's 20% of students that need more management than is given in the classroom. For 15% of those students, just a little bit of extra help usually can bring their behavior around, and we can keep those students in the classroom. However, there's always 5% of students, and this isn't just indicative of Romulus, this is statistically across the nation, that need some specialized and individual treatment and interventions. So those are the students that we're most concerned about. They're the most at high risk. Our challenges for this year are we have had some staff reductions. We've had decrease in social workers, and we also have had decrease in intervention aides. And that staff that we do have left have had some reassignments. So there has been some adjustment. They're now sharing buildings. So those two things are having quite a big impact on our positive behavior plan. And also a challenge is providing that specialized system of intervention for the students with recurring high-risk behavior. And those are the students that we talked about that have historically had a large amount of referrals and do make up for those kids that end up sending our suspension statistics high. So these are our challenges for 2006 and 2007. Our course of action, we have been working on this in the Climate Committee, is to build on the Romulus Way. And that's the program that's been developed at the secondary level for the philosophy of respect, responsibility, and resourcefulness. Students are expected to be guided towards making a plan to keep them in the classroom. The challenge with that, with the elementary kids, is they're really not developmentally in a place where they can do that independently, so they do need guidance. We're going to be able to continue the no bullying program. It'll be implemented by the social workers. Again, that's a research-based program. The social workers are also going to continue the parent workshops. The intervention aids are going to be used a little bit, well, they are being used a little bit differently this year. They're going to be focused on building relationships, providing conflict resolution training to students, and implementing behavior contracts. Another course of action that's important that we're going to be offering is giving teachers tools to use in the classroom. So an example is our professional development on October 31st. We already have two programs in place. One is specifically on classroom management, and the other is going to be on engaging parents, because we know parents are such an important support to students. What's happening now is that top 5% of students that are high risk and can tend to be disrupted to the buildings, the principals are directly intervening in those most severe behaviors. So that's the system that we have in place at this time. Our continuing efforts are going to be to identify and implement best practice relationship building programs into the classrooms. A couple of buildings are already using the Michigan model, and they're using those relationship building instructional sessions. We're going to continue to look and see what we can implement in all the buildings. I think I already said, we're going to provide ongoing professional development for teachers on positive behavior management and strategies for engaging parents. We're going to continue to analyze the data, look and see where our referrals are coming from. Integrate the Romulus way into the elementary environment so that it'll carry on into the secondary. If we're all talking the same talk and walking the same walk at an early level, I think it'll have more impact on the secondary level. And finally, we are going to look at assessing the impact for principals who are intervening with the most high-risk students. I think we have to take a good look at that and see if that's something that realistically is going to be manageable for principals. And that's kind of where we're heading on the elementary positive discipline program for this year. Any questions or comments?
I have one. Do you have any predetermined time for that top 20% of the problem students that you bring the parent in, or you just handle it on a case-by-case basis? Get that parent into the building to meet with the principal to...
Well, I hate to speak for the principals, but I think I'm safe in saying, because it is that top 5%, and those tend to be the students that are so very disruptive that principals are bringing parents in, and parents are really going to have to be part of the solution. So it's these are the kids that they're conferencing with parents.
But they don't have any set guideline as to when they bring them in, or it just depends on the situation, and, you know,
Right,
like if it's a real severe one the very first time, they're going to have the parents in.
Correct. It's really the discretion of the principal.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll turn it over to Sandy.
Well, as we all know, we are working with 2 elementary school social workers as opposed to 6 that we had previously. And well, Pat and I both think we're super women. We are not, but we are doing the most that we can. And I just want to tell you some of the ways we're going to try to continue the same services that we are funded by the grant, the Safe and Drug-Free School grant that we apply for every year. Unfortunately, it gets smaller, it seems like, every year, so we don't have a huge amount. I think it was $22,000 last year, and I'm hoping that it's going to be the same this year and not less. It would be wonderful if it was more, but I think that's a lot to hope for. What we'd like to do is we've had the no bullying sessions, and most of the elementary schools have tried to do it. I know Barth had a whole school-wide focus. I think Merriman did it in a lot of the grades. At WIC, we did it in all of the grades. We had some kind of no violence, no bullying program. We won't be able to do that at that level now, but we are going to target the first grade, which is what the grant was actually written for. So the first grade students in all 6 elementary schools will be have the no bullying 4-week half-hour sessions done by the social workers. That's involved with like pre and post testing that we have to provide for the grant and for ourselves to see if we're being effective. And that involves looking at the data, the discipline data too. The truancy program will continue. That is worked with in conjunction with Officer Norman, who's over at Mount Pleasant, and we hope to be able to continue that. That's the procedure that the district has used for many years now, where the teachers have steps at 5 absences. They call the home at 8 absences. They send a letter out at 10 absences. The social worker becomes involved, and they make a contact, and then we proceed from there. And if it doesn't get better, we turn it over to the police for truancy charges. Unless there's a reason why the absences are occurring. The parent component is going to look a little bit different. Each building tried to do their own building parent programs. And what we'd like to do this year, since there's only a few of us that will be facilitating them, is we'd like to have 4 that will be funded from the grant money, and have one at the high school, one at the middle school, and one at one of the elementaries on the south side, and one elementary on the north side, and invite the parents from the whole district to come to each one of them. And we have money allotted for babysitting services for the kids, and what I'd like to do this year is to have the children's program, instead of just babysitting, have a similar theme, a nonviolence theme that the kids would be involved in while the parents are in a session, so we can get, you know, bigger bang for our buck and do both things. So that's really what we're going to shoot for. So, any questions?
You said north side or south side. Have those schools been identified? And two parts to that question. And once you identify those schools, what type of assessment are you going to do based on? Are you going on last year's numbers, what the turnout was in the previous program? How are you going to determine that?
You mean determining where we'll have it based on how much involvement they had last year? We haven't decided yet how we would choose those 2 schools. We're just now planning it. We haven't been awarded the money yet, and so that's our next step. We're open for any suggestions of how we should do that. We would probably choose the school that, based on turnout that they had previously, and maybe the facilities, the availability, you know, of room and space. We know that some of the schools are used for Boys and Girls Club and have evening programs, so it would be based on where there's room available. And we may, you know, looking at the numbers, may be a good, you know, a past attendance would be a good thing. And I'm not saying that the principals may not have other ideas for evening programs. There may be additional evening programs done, but this is just what we'd be funding through the Safe and Drug-Free grant. Does that answer your question?
That does. And normally, when does the grant usually come in?
We should know, I would say, by the end of November, if not sooner.
Okay.
There's some changes that we have to make to the application, and my goal is that will be done by Wednesday, and then probably in another couple weeks we should know.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
One of the things we're trying to do, and I know Ken's on the Parent Compact Committee, is really unite these 2 committees, the Climate Committee and the Parent Compact Committee. Obviously, we're going to have to expect parents to work more collaboratively with us, to have these high standards of behavior and academics in our classrooms. So Sue and committee and Doug have done a great job, and the principals have been extremely supportive of trying to make the modifications, and we'll get through it. It'll be good.
All right.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Good job.
You got some information we're asking for.
Yeah, do you wanna-
Sure. Next, we have personnel actions on our agenda. Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. Members of the board, I have 2 personnel actions for you this evening. Our first personnel action is a 4-year information. I would like to announce the resignation of 2 of our staff, Terry Moffitt, kindergarten aide at Romulus Elementary, and Ms. Donna Zajac, bus driver, transportation. And for our final personnel action, also a 4-year information, is a termination of Ms. Myra Phillips Lockhart, kindergarten aide at Romulus Elementary School. Thank you.
Any questions? Anyone have any?
I do.
Ms. White?
When are those positions going to be refilled, or have you replaced people, or what's the status with that?
For Mrs. Myra Phillips Lockhart, she was a part of our recall, decided not to take the recalls, and therefore was terminated. Yes, that position will be filled by another laid-off person that we will bring back.
Okay, and what's your time frame for doing that?
The position, matter of fact, has already been recalled. The staff person is Ms. Cindy Gendritz. It's going to be the new kindergarten aide, so that's already been filled.
Any other questions?
Any other questions from any board members?
Now you may answer that one for me.
Okay, then
Okay. Next, we have bills for payment. Mrs. Papaziou.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. I'm recommending the board approve the bills submitted for payment from October 11th through October 19th, 2006, in the amount of $396,330.18.
I move we approve the bills as submitted.
Support.
motion by Ms. Buckley, support by Ms. Freyer. Are there any questions? Seeing none, vote is in order. All those in favor of bills for payment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
All right, next we have, and this is related to our contract with energy management. We have an energy conservation policy, and the policy group just met this evening, hot off the presses, and I believe Board Member Freyer is going to give us a brief update.
Yes, I would actually just like to make a proposal to the board that we accept the energy conservation policy. Did I say that right? I didn't say that right.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
We were given some guidelines to go with this policy tonight, and we would just like to move that the board accept the recommendation of the policy committee to adopt the energy conservation policy. If anybody has any questions in regards to this, we have the guidelines available. It would be too detailed and too lengthy to get into them now. Sherry, did everybody get a copy of these?
No, those were not sent out in board packets, but I could give them to you.
Okay, so if there are any questions in regarding this, we can definitely make sure that you get a copy.
Ms. White?
Yeah, Ms. Freyer, could you just give a little bit detail about this policy being presented to us twice and
Oh, okay,
things
yes. This actually, today was actually our second meeting in regards to the, going over this with the policy committee. What we did was, the policy was developed, and there were some questions that were brought up by Mrs. White in regards to defining what was written in the actual policy. And all of the questions and concerns have been addressed by the administrators in making sure that everything was clarified for us to go along with this. That's what I have.
Just, was a lot of this information from the company that we're contracting with as far as recommendations and setting up the policy? That's
Yeah,
where most of it came from?
it's a policy the company has used all across the nation for districts that are contracting with them for these services. We have tweaked it to meet our needs in Romulus schools, so.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other questions?
Yes, Matt. Sir.
Mr. Cooter?
Yes, how are we going to notify our staff about this? Are we going to hand each one?
Yes,
Copy of
Mr.
it?
Mr. Kidwell, who is our energy manager, he will be actually attending, actually going to each building, hoping to get on in a meeting, a staff meeting, to address any issues they have, to provide them a copy of the guidelines so that everybody's aware of how the program works and kind of what's expected of each person that works here
Okay, great.
to make this work.
I have one other. Has he done anything yet? I mean, has he been out to any of the buildings?
He has toured the building, a few of the buildings with energy education. They wanted to acclimate him to what kinds of things he should be looking at.
Okay.
The other thing, he did attend a conference as well to become more knowledgeable about the subject of heating and cooling and things like that. But he
you.
hasn't done any complete, full investigations.
Yeah, but he's started.
Correct, he's
Okay.
collecting data.
Any other questions? If not,
We would
motion
just
would
need
be
a
in order.
motion.
I would like to make a motion that we accept the energy conservation policy.
Support?
Any other questions? All right, if not, the vote is in order. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Now we come to the communications and expressions from the public. I have notes up here from, I believe it's just two people. First one, Mr. Rob McLaughlin, would like to speak.
one. Good evening, and thank you, Mr. Minkevich. Actually, I'm here with good news, or actually, I'm in a good mood. I just wanted to invite or inform the board. The band boosters, as you know, we're working very diligently trying to achieve our goals with band uniforms, and we're bringing back an old fundraiser, I guess, that was done several years ago, and we've talked with people and they've requested it back. So we're doing a raffle called Win the Band. Tickets are currently being sold. The drawing will be held on November 1st during the Bandorama celebration at the high school. Tickets are $1 a piece, or 6 for $5, and I just happen to have some with me after the meeting if anybody would like any. I know Mr. Kudrick bought some Friday at the football game.
How much are the tickets?
They're $1 a piece, or 6 for $5, and the winner gets to have the band play for them at a place of their choosing within 20 miles of the high school. So we're kind of excited about this. We're looking to have a very cooperative public on this, and appreciate any support you can give us as far as telling people about the raffle and have them see a band booster or come to parent-teacher conferences this week or next week at the Bandorama to get their tickets.
Okay, what's the name of the raffle again?
It's called Win the Band.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pretty cool. It is pretty cool.
The next one, and I'm not sure if it says Rob to speak.
No.
Okay, yours was, okay. Then it's Roberta Jo Keene. Would like to speak. I think you might have to, yes, and I think you might have to turn it on.
Okay, can you hear me? I'm here tonight as a parent of my 5-year-old son who has been diagnosed in the autism categories. He's not being allowed to attend school. He's being asked not to come to school. And I would just like to come to you to find out where my son can go to school in Romulus and get an education. He's 5 years old. He can read at a 3rd, 4th grade level. He does have some autistic tendencies, but he's not being allowed to go to school. If his behavior isn't correct or exceptional, he's not being allowed to go to lunch. I have to come and get him. And I just feel that there's a lot of programs for the children who don't know how to do things, but I haven't seen anything, or no one's given me any guidance to anything to where my child might succeed or be. The words gifted have been used by his preschool teacher and an outside psychologist. I don't use the word gifted. I educated him at home. I thought I was doing something good for my son, and now he's being asked to leave because, according to his teacher, the curriculum she has for the whole year, he already knows. There isn't anything else she can teach him that he doesn't know. And my question is where in the city of Romulus, where I pay my school taxes, where can my son go to school all day and not be called every other day, or I have to be on guard, and that my son is being sent home because he didn't take a time out properly, or he doesn't get to go to lunch because he verbally objected to a timeout. These are things that he's learning to control, but right now he's a young 5. He's very smart, but this is one of your children that fall in either the 20% that need the extra help, but I don't believe he's the 5% that are a problem. So that's all I want to know. I don't want to fight anymore. I went to MSRP every day in school to make sure he got to go to that school. I went to school the first 3 weeks to make sure he would be looked after and taken care of. The first day I let him go to school by himself, he was lost. He was in the wrong classrooms. They lost his coats. Had no idea where he was or where his belongings were. I'm not wanted to be there to supervise. Can you help me?
Got a couple of questions too.
Yes, Mrs. Keene, was your son assessed at all by our experts?
Yes, sir. I asked last year, and I have tape recordings, that I requested an IEP as early as October last year in MSRP. This was not done until April. The IEP stated that my son had ADHD and did not qualify for any services. The psychologist had me fill out her paperwork, and her report was plagiarized off the ADHD checklist, which was the only survey or what that was given to his teachers.
So,
and they said, I checked, I disagreed with the IEP and its implementation because school was out in 3 weeks. Then I get a call on Friday before school starts, Labor Day weekend, that my son cannot attend school full day, he can go half day. I asked where this was written in the IEP. It's not written in there, just like it wasn't written 6 times that it was suggested that I medicate him. I have spent $500, my son's savings, because I was told by the principal that nothing can be done for my son without an outside evaluation. Now that psychologist is speaking with a social worker who say if we give him any kind of a diagnosis in autism or ADHD, that he'll be placed in with children with retardation or severe learning disabilities, when in fact, like I said, I don't like the word gifted. He's been educated. I worked with him. We don't even own a computer. He reads at a 3rd, 4th grade level, and he writes. And I believe that the behaviors in school and the reason that he's having trouble is that he's not being challenged. He knows how to read. He's reading 200-page books. So where does a child in Romulus go that, I don't like the word gifted. He's just smarter in that, but he's also young in sociability. He doesn't care to, he's being sent to the office. That's where he wants to be. He wants to sit with you, or you, whoever's going to talk to him on an adult level, and give him paper and read his obsession things. Those are the things that fall into autistic tendencies. I spent 3 weeks before school started to try to inform the teachers, the principal, the staff about what I call trauma drama. When he doesn't get to finish coloring a picture to any other child, it's not a problem. To my son, it's horrific. He breaks out in tears. If you don't know that he has Asperger's or a problem or whatever this is, you think he's just a bad boy and he's just acting out. But there's a reason for it. And I'm not getting any help. And I'm not getting any answers. And it's starting to affect me now. I don't want to send my son to school if we're not wanted here.
So let me just summarize. So you've collaborated with members of our special education department. They did an assessment, and they determined that your son didn't qualify for special education services. Correct? Okay. And then, and your right as a citizen, if you disagree with our assessment, is to have an independent assessment. And it sounds like you've had that.
Well, I also have a book from Reader's Digest that says Know Your Rights. It says if the school requests a second opinion, that the school is supposed to pay for it.
But the school didn't. You're requesting a second opinion, right?
Well, I didn't request a second opinion because if I have to deal with the same people that I dealt with last time, that I had to do their paperwork and their reports, they're not doing me any good.
Okay.
And if their diagnosis is
I don't want to disagree with you, and I don't want to debate with you. I'm just asking.
Okay.
I'm trying to clarify. So what you're telling me is that the school, you're not in agreement with the school's assessment, but you haven't completed an independent assessment, right?
Not this year.
Okay. We would be glad to set up a meeting with you and members of the school district. If you could, before you leave, if you could give me some contact information. Or does the school have all your contact information?
I certainly do.
Okay, and you're currently not sending your son to school at all, or you are sending him
Well,
to school?
I've been asked to keep him home twice.
You were
and
asked by whom?
I was asked by the principal and the teachers, due to having substitute teachers, to please keep my son home. I have those taped on voicemail.
So you were asked to keep him home when we had a situation where the regular teacher was not in the classroom?
And I'm being called every day to come and pick him up, that he hasn't earned lunch privileges. After lunch is recessed, if he doesn't get to go to lunch, he doesn't get to go to recess, and he's never been able to attend school in the afternoon at all. I don't receive any of the homework and the things that go home with him, and he's already past that, so I'm just in a...
Okay, well, I'd be glad to set up a meeting with you. I know you've been here for the entire board meeting, and you know that we're looking at getting through our school years with fewer and fewer resources than we're accustomed to having, and unfortunately, that means that that we're not able to provide all the services that we want to provide because we just don't have the financial means. But we're going to do what we can for your child, just as we would do for any child. So, just before you leave, if you want to give me,
I just would like more of a, I have letters here that I asked why he wasn't, and what the goal term time is to have him go to school all day, full day, and it's when he can. If he has autism and he falls in the spectrum, he may never be able to behave perfectly all day, every day, which means his behavior plan is unattainable.
All right, and I'd be happy to address those with you, you know, when we set up a meeting.
Okay, thank you very much for hearing me tonight.
Good luck.
I might add, if you don't hear from Mr. Weiss, you know, quite soon, because he does follow through well,
Well, I hope so.
make sure you call in.
This is my last time to make nice. I've been fighting for a year and a half. I've got audio tapes, I've got a tape from a lawyer that says you can't throw a child out of school just because he can't behave. I've been told by the principal, if he can't follow the behavior plan, he can't go to school here. But if he's 5 years old and he has autism, he might be unable to. He's learning every day, but I don't feel he's been given a fair chance.
Can I say something, Ms.
Yeah,
McKenzie?
Ms. White has a comment.
I just have a question or a comment. Prior to coming here to the board, did you sit down with any other administrators outside of the building principal?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, administrative, from the administrative office here?
No, I've gone through the principal, I've gone to the special services. I worked last year with Mrs. Jeffrey Royal, who was very compassionate. Miss Pat Flodine has been working with me very carefully, and they were the only people that, to say, had my back a little bit and understood. Ms. Flodine did do a second evaluation on my son this year, and she sees the progress. But there are still, like I said, I'm almost afraid to have a psychologist give him a diagnosis because he's not retarded. If anything, he excels, and I want him to be able to keep excelling. You know, when they're teaching red and yellow in class and he's reading 200-page books, he's not learning.
I understand. I understand what you're saying. I just wanted to know, had you worked with anybody else prior to beyond the building principal? That's what we're trying to get clear.
I have numbers of 30 different people I have contacted. I have contacted the Grozio school system to find out where my great niece, who is autistic, got her services, because she has now been taken care of at a young age. These issues she's learned, and you wouldn't know there was a problem with her today. I feel that if something doesn't happen and we don't get him pointed in the right direction, he will turn out to be one of the bad kids, a bad egg, a bad apple. If you read the IEP report, you would think he was the worst child on earth because there's no degrees of impairment listed. But there were no other tests done other than for ADHD. I took the CARS survey because it was a suggestion from his preschool teacher at MSRP, who has a special education degree. I knew there was something wrong when my son can read 200 pages, but he has difficulty sitting still. And as I sat the first 3 weeks to watch, why he has a difficulty sitting still is because he knows everything they're teaching him. So I don't know where to go. That's why I'm here to ask you. And Principal Knight's been trying to work with me, but her word trumps mine. So in order for my word to have any value, this is where I have to be.
Thank you.
Yes, we appreciate it. Thank you.
There were no other public comment.
No, that was the last public comment. There was no one else, was there? Okay. Then the next item is items of interest from the superintendent.
Okay, you have in your packet, board members, in addition to your the audit report, you have individual newsletters from Barth, also Hale Creek, and you have a summary report, the annual report from Middle Cities, which is the organization that the district belongs to. It's a combination of a lobbying organization and a resource for our administrators, comprised of school districts with similar demographic characteristics to ours.
Mr. Weiss, if I may, on the Middle Cities, what types of, do we receive anything from them other than the lobbying services? Do they send out reports or?
Yes, they. I receive a summary for them in conjunction with their lobbying services. I receive a recap on what's happening in the legislature, and I get that every week. In addition to that, they provide a lot of professional development. They have regular meetings scheduled for our school business officials. They've started a group with our for high school principals this year. They have a public relations group, I believe, that meets regularly as well, and a human resources group that meets as well. And so it's a chance for our administrators to have a facilitated collaboration with people who do the same job in other school districts with characteristics similar to ours. And that's probably one of the most valuable experiences.
Thank you. Last item here is questions and concerns of board members. Do we have any board members that have comments they would like to make? I have one. Sherry, have we ever heard any resolve to that problem we had with the hotel or whatever it was at the airport? Where I know this started, what, a year ago?
Yeah, and that's what the auditor was alluding to earlier when he was talking about how the taxes and the state aid are, correlated. No, but we are working on that. We're attempting to obtain a document from the city that we can submit to the state to try to work some, magic with them to tell them, you do owe us X amount of dollars. So no, there's no resolution, but we are working on it.
It's still ongoing, that's what I was
correct.
wondering. Okay.
It's a very lengthy process.
I'm sorry. Ms. Frayer?
I actually just have one question or concern, actually. The elective at the middle school for gym, I personally feel has way too many students in the gym class. If you guys could look into that. I know it's too late for this semester.
Repeat, I'm sorry.
The middle school, their gym classes, I feel have entirely double the students they should have. I think those classes are just too large, and I don't know if, with some of the things that we've been doing, if there was a reason for that, but I think that somehow by next semester, if we could minimize the sizes by half, that would be great. I don't know what we'd do with them.
We're
but
not over our contractual limit.
I think it's close to 50 boys in the gym class, and I think for one teacher, that's an awful lot of students, even if they are just running around or whatever. I mean, that's a lot of kids to try to teach. I mean, there are things in gym that they try to go over with those boys, and when you have a class size of almost 50, there's one class that was 48. Mr. Clark?
He said there's no limits, that's why.
There's no limit?
Right, there's no contractual limit on the gym class size.
Okay, well, as a board, can we develop one? Because there are things that those kids should be doing at that level, and they're unable to do it.
So what's a safe environment?
Yeah.
A safe number, I guess.
50
that's
kids.
what she's alluding to.
Well, I think, just in response, it sounds like a large number of students, and if the board wants to develop some guidelines for us to adhere to, we'd be happy to work with you on that. We don't have a guideline right now, and as you know, we are operating under fewer resources. We're not trying to overcrowd, but sometimes that is the result.
Maybe, the administration can just check into it, get an idea of how big are the classes, maybe it's one or two classes, because I know a lot of times scheduling gets to be a nightmare, and there's
That's a problem.
certain hours
Right.
where you might be overcrowded in a class, and other hours you're not, but you can't juggle the students to make it work, so.
And not only in terms of scheduling, but we've cut back on some of our elective classes. And when doing so, you then make the other classes larger.
And I seem to think that that's where the rush came from with all the kids being in the gym classes, that we do have less electives this year at the middle school. So I believe that more students have been put in the gym, but on a level of having 50 kids or near to one teacher, I think that's a little extreme. It's a lot of students.
And as you pointed out, that was for our first semester. We'll see what we can do to adjust that for our second semester.
Yeah, that's all I'm asking.
Okay.
Just if we could take a look at it by next semester and see if we can iron that out just a little bit. There are activities that those kids could do that I would like to see them be able to have the opportunity to do, but for example, they can't use the weight room because there's just entirely too many students to try to fit them all in that room, as it's so small. So there's certain things that this semester kids can't do that they've always been able to do in the past, but I'll be done. If we could just look at it, I'd appreciate it.
You got one too, I got a question.
Okay, Ms. White?
A couple of weeks ago, we requested an update on My Friends and Me. Do you have one?
Oh, that's my fault. That was the first thing I was supposed to tell you. We are working on a presentation. We will have that for the first November board meeting. I believe it's November 13th. We don't have, our presentation's about 90% completed. It's not 100% completed, so I meant that was supposed to be the first item on my list, and I completely forgot to tell you.
Okay, thank you.
I had one other question. Again, after going through the audit, and we've got the, ways, or we need ways to come up with funds, it seems to me we need to start doing a little bit more on what we charge for our building use. We need to do something with the city. They're coming in, and I know they use our facilities for all their recreation programs. And if you look in the paper, they charge for all their recreation programs. So, we have a situation there where money, and the thing we really got to look out for, to me, would be the utilities, the amount of electricity, the cleanup, use of showers, what have you. So I was hoping that, maybe we can, because we addressed this once before.
3 years ago, and it was
we talked
supposed
about
to,
it before.
be charged, and
And it doesn't seem like we're getting or charging enough for what
Yeah.
these outside groups are getting. Because, it forces us into custodial time and a lot of things that, to me, it might be a way we need to look.
If I could respond to a little of that. Met with the city late in the summer, and we are now charging the city if their rental of our facilities results in additional custodial time. We're being very careful to schedule them at a time where we have people on duty already, but the city is more than willing to pay. That was what was communicated to me, and my understanding is that we are in a pay for services. I don't have the dollar figures on whether or not we're going to receive that yet, or but it is something that was addressed with the city last summer.
And I'm not, the same with any of the other outside groups. I don't know what we're getting, but it just seems like we're not getting enough.
Which,
Any
Ken,
other-
if I
Ms. Frayer?
can,
Sure.
just a question, because I don't know. When we have a situation where we're allowing the city to use one of our buildings, the permission slips that are signed by the parents, who actually would be responsible? Does the school have any liability as to what happens to those children while they're on our property after hours
City.
for an event in relation to the city? A city event?
My understanding is the liability is between the city and who's providing the service and the people who are using the service, and I don't have copies of what's signed by the parents. I don't know what's stated on there, but that's my understanding. I'd be happy to look into that. I'm not
Yeah,
an
if you
attorney.
would, please,
They have-
because
yeah,
that's
they
been a
put out
concern of
permission
mine for quite some time, and something very recent just brought that to light that I'd like to find out about, just to be sure that the school district, is clean. And then just a reminder to the parents at home watching, Barth is having their spooktacular, I believe it is this Friday, so any volunteers, come on out, contact the school. That's all
What
I
day?
have.
What day?
It is Friday, this Friday.
And you have a date?
I believe it's in our
27th,
packets.
27th.
Yeah, Friday the 27th.
It's in your packet, too.
Is that right, Ms. Gilka? Okay,
From 6 to 8.
okay.
If you can't volunteer, at least just come out.
Mr. McKevich, I got one comment, since we
Goodrich?
talked about the building issues there. Mr. Weiser, I'm not sure if this is going to be your department, but one thing that really aggravates me the most about the building use, especially at the high school, is folks that are using the auditorium. Our students aren't allowed to eat and drink in there. We have outside groups that go in there and eat and drink, and they park on the front lawn. A lot of times I drive by going home or going to places around town, I see not one, but several cars parked on the front lawn while the function's going on. Maybe to unload would be one thing, but I don't think several cars need to be parked by the door in front of the building. It's not, we don't have for sale signs on these cars,
we need to kind of be a little bit more stricter on the lawns, especially with the rain situation we've had too.
Maybe help me out, I'm not familiar. Do you know what group is using our auditorium that's?
It's numerous groups. It's not just one particular group. It's when groups use it, especially on the weekends, like Saturday evenings or Sundays. You
Yeah.
go by there is cars parked on the front lawn.
I don't see it as much on Sunday as I do on Saturday.
Well, not too much Sunday, but I mean Saturdays you see a lot of them.
When we go back to the auditoriums, do we have any reason why there has to be a class in the one section of the auditorium?
In the back.
In the back, one section, there is a teacher who has his classes there. And I
He's
can't
always been
believe,
He's been there as long as I've been.
but I
in.
can't believe we should have enough classroom space.
He's comfortable.
That's a huge building.
I think he
But
prefers.
what about the damage to the auditorium?
Well, the one classroom, I think they turned it into a dance room, wasn't it?
Yeah.
One time. That used to be that back
Yeah,
part of
there's
the
a dance
auditorium.
class, and a dance floor back there, but my understanding is that the teacher prefers to hold his class there, it meets his needs, and I don't know anything more, Mr. Dolan, you know any more than that?
You're exactly right. And April's right. He's been there forever and he enjoys that format. And
As I've heard from different times where we've had custodians and people have to go in there and replace all the seat covers.
Yeah.
You know, replace the seat covers and things because of the damage done because there's classrooms in there.
Oh, my gosh.
And it just, I've brought it up before, and it just doesn't make sense to me. And I think we should look at it, and
Maybe it's a comfortable environment for him. I don't know.
Who's paying
Been
for
there
this?
forever.
we are.
Forever.
We
It's
are?
our classroom.
It hasn't happened in the last 9 months, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean the seat
Good
covers
enough.
is not an
Yes.
issue?
Yeah, I'm not aware of that.
I'm not, yeah. I haven't seen any expenditure go through since I've been here.
Comfort zone, okay.
All right, any other?
Nope.
All right, then questions and concern of board members is finished. The next section is the executive session.
Madam,
We need a motion.
I'll make a motion to go into executive session.
We have a motion by Ms. Frayer, support by Mrs. Lanasi to convene an executive session. We'll need roll call vote.
Ms. Frayer.
Yes.
Ms. Buckley.
Yes.
Mr. Cooter. Ms. Lanasi. Mr. Minkiewicz.
Yes.
Ms. White. Yes.
So we have a 6-0, adjourning at
7:47.
47.
Mr. Minkiewicz?
Folks, okay.
Ken,
Yeah.
you might want to say
Thank you very much.
Oh,
Superintendent evaluation.
yeah.
Passionate about that.
Yeah.
Correct.
I want to know who's saying.
Yeah, we are going into executive session concerning evaluation of the superintendent, and there will be no action after we come out of executive session.
full service.
To have a motion to reconvene into regular session.
I would like to make a motion, Madam Chair, to reconvene into into regular session.
Support.
We have a motion by Frayer, support by Kuderik, to convene into regular session. We have roll call, please.
Ms. Frayer.
Yes.
Buckley. Cooterick. Lanasi. Minkiewicz.
Yes.
White, yes.
I motion that we adjourn.
And I
Oh,
support it.
we gotta have time.
I've got it.
9:04. Okay.
I'm writing it.
I was,
All right, now we need a motion for adjournment.
motion to adjourn.
And I supported it. Yeah, we're straight.
Madam Chair.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?